welcome back to another Mystery Monday video on my channel. Get comfortable because today's video is going to be a little bit longer than my usual videos. And also quickly, I just want to say that this case is going to be presented a little bit differently than any other case that I've ever covered on this channel, just because the way that it kind of played out is different than anything I've ever talked about before. So with that being said, let's get right into today's case. Bethany was born on October 15th, 1985 to her parents Eric and Carol Lightmine. She was one of 5 children, having 3 sisters and 1 brother. Her entire family was really devout Christian, so she grew up in a very religious household. Bethany was homeschooled her entire life up until she had reached high school, and at this time people who knew her said that she was a very fast learner and she was a very bright girl and quite the gifted writer. Throughout Bethany's entire life, but really coming out in her high school age, Bethany was a hopeless romantic and would often write letters to her future husband and also write things describing what she would like to have in a future husband. In 2005, Bethany started attending school at Southwestern University just outside of Austin, Texas, and she was there on a scholarship for writing. And while there, she met a group of people who had the same beliefs as her. They were all like-minded Christians who got along really well. Unfortunately, though, this group would be what ultimately led Bethany to her downfall. Amongst this group of people was a man by the name of Tyler Deaton, and Tyler, similar to Bethany, was raised in a very religious household in Robstown, Texas. Tyler was described as having a very strong personality that would draw people to him, and he was generally liked by everybody who he had come into contact with. And because of this reason, Bethany pretty much immediately fell head over heels for Tyler, and on one occasion even said that she believed that God wanted her and Tyler to be together. Now this is where things in this case start to get a bit concerning and kind of odd. Tyler, like I said before, had a really strong personality and was considered to be quite a leader in this group of people. And many of the people who were within this friend group said that they believed that Tyler actually had a special connection to God and even described him as having magical powers. And one specific incident that I came across was talking about somebody who was in this group who said that Tyler had put a curse of some sort on this person's appliances and they completely stopped working. So you kind of see where I'm going with this. And Tyler didn't deter people from having this kind of belief in him, and he actually encouraged them and kept saying, yes, I do have a special connection to God, and yes, I do have special powers because of my special connection to God. In 2007, Tyler Deaton went on a missionary trip to Pakistan, and while there, he started to have these kind of encounters with God, so he claims, where he could hear God speaking to him and giving him commands. And this is what really got the ball rolling in this case. On July 20th, 2007, while waiting in line to go see a movie, Tyler claimed that he had a special encounter with God, and God spoke to him and told him that he needed to start some kind of a worship group. So when the group got back together after the summer break, that is exactly what Tyler tried to do. He told his group of friends about this conversation that he had with God, and they all believed him. They thought that he had a special connection to God and there was no reason for him to be lying, so they thought that they needed to follow his leadership. And that is when this pretty normal group of friends who would originally hang out and talk about things that they had in common, their common interests such as books and movies that they liked, quickly changed into something very different. Now, at this time, instead of just being a normal group of young people hanging out, they quickly switched to really putting in emphasis on anything Tyler had asked them to do. And at this time, they spent a lot of their free time studying the Bible. In the December of that same year, Tyler attended a conference for a group that is known as the International House of Prayer. Now, this is a religious organization that was developed in 1983 in Grandview, Missouri. And correct me if I'm wrong, but to my knowledge, this group seems to be a very strict Christian group. They think that all Christians should have 24-hour access to a prayer room, and they think that you should be praying multiple times throughout the day. Anyways, after Tyler came back from this conference, all of his friends said that he seemed like a changed person, and Tyler himself even said that this conference completely changed his life. After going to this conference, Tyler seemed to be absolutely obsessed with the International House of Prayer, and due to the fact that he was pretty much the leader of this group, he really influenced all of them, and they all started devoting all of their time to prayer, and they completely stopped worrying about anything that didn't have to do with the Bible. Now, as you can probably already see throughout this case, this group put a lot of trust and leadership into Tyler Deaton. They thought that he was special. They thought he had a special connection to God, and by following him, they were doing what God wished for them. They thought that they were following his commands and being the best Christians that they could be by following his leadership. Around this time, Bethany met a man by the name of Micah Moore. Now, I'm not going to dive too much into Micah's background or how him and Bethany met, but he was described to be quite an odd character. And at some point after meeting him, Bethany thought that Micah needed some kind of guidance, so she introduced him to the worship group. And immediately, Micah really took to the worship group, but in particularly Tyler and the demands that he would eventually make. Around the time that Micah Moore had joined the group, there was a total of about 20 people inside of this worship group, all following the demands of Tyler Deaton. And around this same time is when Tyler Deaton would start using his power over these people, for lack of a better word, very inappropriately. Many of the members within this group started to branch off into couples, and Tyler really did not like this, and he would often convince them to break up and start seeing other people within the group. And because they all really respected Tyler, and I think majority of them didn't really have many friends outside of this group, they pretty much always followed his demands. And he would get very angry at the people within the group for doing really minor things such as flirting, and he would punish them for this. And his punishments included shunning that person or having the entire group give them the silent treatment. When Micah joined the group, he was described by many of the members who were a part of this cult-like group to often break out in tongues. He would often just break out randomly and start speaking in tongues. And he would claim that he was having visions. And one of these visions in particularly was when he predicted that there would be a tragedy at Southwest University. He told the worship group about this tragedy that he had predicted on December 3rd, and on December 4th, a young man got hit by a car on Southwest University's property, and sadly he passed away. The young man who had gotten struck by the car was actually well known to the worship group. He was known to often challenge the group's belief and give Tyler specifically a hard time. Now this next part is just so crazy to me, but the whole group, like all of the 20 people that were following Tyler, at first thought that this was a tragedy. Somebody had been killed. That is horrible, and it is a tragedy. But after speaking to Tyler, they found out that Tyler thought that this boy was actually the Antichrist, and the group then began to celebrate his passing. This, to me, as I'm sure it does to you guys, seems really messed up. Especially while doing my research on this case and coming across this man's death, it seems that this man was really liked and he was a good person. He was well liked by the community, he did a lot for the community, and he wasn't a bad person, and nobody deserves to die. But the fact that this group of 20 people were celebrating his death just boggles my mind. Shortly after joining this prayer group, Micah Moore's parents started to notice a change in their son's behaviors. Now, of course, they didn't know the cult-like and controlling things that were going on within this prayer group, but they did know that something wasn't right with their son. So for that specific reason, they had him change schools following the Christmas break of 2008. And after this, Micah had actually visited some kind of clinic, and it was confirmed that he had some sort of mental breakdown. Now, I just need to mention this, but over the years while this was going on and the group was growing and more people were joining, Bethany was still falling head over heels more and more in love with Tyler Deaton. And in 2009, she had graduated from Southwest University with a degree for writing. But instead of pursuing a career in writing, Bethany, along with many other members of this group, followed Tyler Deaton to Grandview, Missouri to be closer to the International House of Prayer. After moving to Grandview, Missouri, they started to, intern with the House of International Prayer, and they were now living in houses that I think were owned by that organization. So one of the houses had all of the males from Tyler's group living in one house with Tyler, and then all of the females living in one house with Bethany. That summer, Tyler and Bethany would begin dating. Now, everybody who knew them said that their relationship was really strange. They didn't seem to be affectionate with one another and never really hung out alone. In fact, the couple had designated days where they would see each other, and that was only Tuesdays and Fridays. And on top of that, it is said that they didn't even kiss until the day of their engagement. Tyler's control over this group was getting stronger and stronger. Not only had he convinced them to move with him to Missouri, but none of these people were working in the fields that they had graduated with degrees for. And at this time, Tyler had convinced them all that his sole duty in life was to preach, and he had all of the members of this group support him financially. So all of these people paid money, they went to school, they graduated, and they were now working these jobs that they didn't like, they had no intention of ever working, all to support Tyler while he did basically nothing. And this is the time when I would start to really describe this group as a full-blown cult. In 2010, Mika Moore would rejoin this group, living in the men's house along with Tyler Deaton. And something that I just want to mention is that while Tyler's control over this group of people was growing and growing, so was the abuse that he would inflict on them. And some of the things that he would do to them would be when he felt like somebody was going against him or doing something that he didn't like, he would completely shut them out from the group, not speaking to them, not having any connection to them. And that is really messed up because this group's pretty much entire source of connection was with each other. And in some instances, he would even make these people eat off the floor. Now, I know that I keep going back and forth and talking about things that may not have really any connection to this story, but I'm just really trying to paint a picture for you guys here of just how dark and twisted this group got after moving to Missouri. Also, something that I forgot to mention earlier on in this video is after moving to Missouri, Bethany started to take a nursing course, and she graduated from this course in 2012. And after Bethany finished this course in August of 2012, Bethany and Tyler Deaton would be married. Now, many people who knew Bethany but didn't know of the cult, and even the people who were within the cult with her, said that while Bethany was dating Tyler, she really seemed to lose her spirit and her confidence. And her family and friends who attended the wedding, who weren't a part of the cult, said that the wedding seemed very weird and uncomfortable. But after the wedding, Bethany's mother said that Bethany seemed genuinely happy. She was really excited to go on to their honeymoon and was acting as if she was the happiest she'd ever been in her life. And because of this, Bethany's mother said that because Bethany was a very smart girl, she had a really good head on her shoulders, and she was generally a really good judge of character, her mom didn't think anything was wrong, and that maybe she possibly misjudged Tyler, and maybe she misjudged the whole entire group of people. When Bethany and Tyler returned back from their honeymoon, many people said that Bethany appeared to be a bit different and almost thought that she might be a little bit ill. But besides this, Bethany moved into the men's home, into the basement with Tyler. Now, something about this that is a bit strange is Bethany and Tyler really didn't sleep together. Bethany would often sleep on the couch outside of the bedroom, or more often than not, she would actually sleep in her old room at the woman's home. And when she was questioned about this, she would say that she just needed a break from Tyler, or that she needed a break from being under his control. People who were within this group said that Bethany would often bring up her marital problems to Tyler, but this would usually result in him and the rest of the group shunning her, or, making fun of her in front of the rest of the group. And this really caused her mental health to start deteriorating. On one occasion, when Bethany had tried to confront Tyler about their issues, she'd actually threatened that she was going to drink windshield washer fluid. And at this time, Tyler had called the police, and Bethany was taken to the hospital where she was kept for 2 days on suicide watch before being released. And sadly, just 2 days after Bethany's release from the hospital, on October 30th, 2012, the body of Bethany Deaton would be found deceased in her car. Her cause of death was originally believed to be suicide, as she had overdosed, and she was also found with a plastic bag tied tightly around her head. Along with Bethany Deaton inside the vehicle, police also found a plastic Walmart bag which had a cell phone inside of it, along with Bethany's journal where she had written her thoughts and feelings, and you could definitely tell that she was not in a good place mentally. Along with this, they also found some almost finished written thank you notes for the wedding, which I think you should keep in mind because I'm going to come back to that in a moment. There was also 2 bottles of Tylenol PM, one which had been completely emptied and the other one hadn't even been opened. Along with that, they also found her suicide note. The note read, "My name is Bethany Deaton. I chose this evil thing. I did it because I wouldn't be a real person, and what's the point of living if it's too late for that? I wish I had chose differently a long time ago. I knew it all and refused to listen. Maybe Jesus will still save me." Originally, the cause of death was ruled to be asphyxiation, and the fact that it could have been anything besides suicide wasn't even really considered. On November 9th, 2012, while Bethany's family was getting ready to bury her body, her mother got a phone call saying that the police needed more time with her body. Just hours before Bethany Deaton was scheduled to be buried, Mika Moore confessed to her murder and said that he had been told to do so by Tyler Deaton. Mika said that Bethany had drank water that had been laced with Seroquel, which is a sleeping medication. He said that after she drank this water, he then put a plastic bag over her head and held it there until he felt her body become lifeless. Mika had also told the police that this was not the first time that Bethany had been laced with Seroquel. He said that they would often do this to her and lace her water with Seroquel, and then multiple men living inside the men's house would sexually assault her. Now, he never accused Tyler Deaton of being involved in the sexual assault, but he did say that Tyler Deaton was aware of it. He said that to his knowledge, some of the sexual assaults were actually filmed on an iPad that was within the men's home. He said that with Bethany's deteriorating mental health, they thought that she was going to come out to authorities about what was going on within the home. Because there being a lack of evidence that anything else could have possibly happened besides suicide, the police originally didn't look at this case as a murder. But after Mika Moore had come forward with this bit of information, they thought that this kind of put the pieces together because of two specific things. One of these things being that when Bethany was found, her eyes were actually open, suggesting that she was awake when she passed away. And usually this does not happen when people overdose with Tylenol PM. One of the other things is that it appeared that Bethany was in the middle of writing thank you notes for her wedding. And something that was mentioned often is, why would somebody write thank you notes before they knew they were going to take their own life? Or why would they begin to write a thank you note and then take their own life when they knew that either these people weren't going to get them or they weren't going to be alive to send them out? It just didn't really make sense to authorities. Another thing that was also mentioned is it is very rare for somebody to commit suicide after being married for such a short period of time. And Bethany and Tyler had only been married at this point for about 2 months. Usually at this time in a marriage, this is when people are in their kind of honeymoon state. They're really lovey and over the moon and extremely happy. So for somebody to take their life at this stage in a marriage is very unlikely and not heard of very often, although it does sometimes happen. Another thing that I just want to mention is people who knew Bethany and were close with her both before she had joined this cult and throughout the time that she was with Tyler said that this suicide letter just didn't sound like something that she would write. She was a gifted writer, and they said that this suicide note seemed awfully bland and just didn't seem like her. It didn't seem like something she would say or write. It didn't seem like her style of writing. It just didn't sound like Bethany Deaton at all. Almost immediately after Bethany Deaton's death, the International House of Prayer came out saying that they had absolutely nothing to do with any of this. They didn't know about the cult. They had no involvement with Mika Moore or Tyler Deaton. They didn't know what was going on within those houses, and they had no link to Bethany Deaton's death. After Bethany's death, but even more so after Mika's confession, Tyler's group pretty much completely fell apart. And a lot of the men who had been involved in this community came forward to investigators and told them that Tyler often manipulated a lot of the young men in this group to be involved in a sexual relationship with him. He would do this by telling the young men that by having sexual relationships with him, they would now be having a special connection to God, and that having sexual relations with him would somehow give them a special kind of religious experience. 2 weeks after Mika Moore's original confession, he recanted and said that this confession was due to his mental state and that none of this had happened, and that this confession had actually been coerced out of him by some of the head leaders at the International House of Prayer. In November of 2012, Mika Moore was indicted on first-degree murder. On January 17, 2013, Mika Moore was entered into a guilty plea and granted bail. And in October of 2014, all charges against Mika Moore had been dropped due to lack of evidence. They said that Mika Moore had actually gotten a lot of the key factors in Bethany's death wrong, and in the original autopsy there had been no signs of sexual assault and no traces of Seroquel were found within her body. Obviously now you can see that there are two very obvious theories in this case of what could have possibly happened to Bethany Deaton. Many people believe that Bethany had been suicidal and had taken her own life, and others believe that the cult that Tyler Deaton had created was somehow involved in her death. Now, I'm really not sure where I stand in this case. I think that both have very strong possibilities. I think that Tyler Deaton and the people who were following him were very mentally unstable as well. I think that a lot of them had issues. I think that to be following somebody that strongly and put that much faith into somebody, you must not be, completely there yourself, or he must be a master manipulator, which I think could also be tied in here. But I also think that maybe Bethany could have taken her own life, but maybe it was due to the fact that Tyler had been abusing her so severely mentally that her mental health had been deteriorating, and it had been. So maybe this was a result of that, but I'm just not sure. Please make sure to let me know what you guys think about this case down below, because I'd really like to know where you guys stand, or if you have more information that makes you lean towards one side of this case or the other side of this case. But something that I just can't wrap my head around is that even with the accusations of Tyler sexually abusing some of the young men within this group, he has never faced any kind of charge at all to do with this case. In fact, I don't think he's ever faced any kind of charge in his whole entire life, but he hasn't faced any charges to do with this at all. Without the cult, with anything like that, he has never faced any charges. Tyler Deaton is out there right now living as a free man. And in fact, you can look up his name online and you can figure out, some of his other stuff that he has done throughout his life. He worked at a school for a short period of time but got fired after some of the students had Googled his name. Just things like that. Like, he is just living a normal life, and he committed, he didn't really commit. We can't accuse him of committing murder. Nobody in this case is being accused of committing murder because, of course, you are not guilty until proven so. But he created a cult. This was a cult. There is no other way to describe this group of people other than Tyler was leading a cult, and they were involved in some pretty messed up stuff, and he has faced no punishments for any of that. Also, something that I'd just like to mention is Tyler Deaton has completely denied that this was a cult at all, and has even said that he thinks that if he was leading a cult, because this group of people fell apart after Bethany's death, that this couldn't be a cult, and if it was, he was a very bad cult leader, and that is pretty much in his own words. Regardless of how Bethany passed, though, my heart sincerely goes out to her family. This case is just so tragic. Bethany Deaton was a very bright, beautiful girl who had a very strong future ahead of her, and she had so much to offer to this world. And it is so sad that her life ended so abruptly and so tragically. But guys, that brings us to the end of this video. If you like this video, please give it a big thumbs up, and don't forget to comment down below what you'd like to see in my future videos, and don't forget to subscribe and turn on that notification bell so that you don't miss any future videos from me. Also, quickly, if you have requested any videos over the time that I have gotten my YouTube channel till now that I haven't made a video about, and you remember or you would still like to see that case, can you please re-comment that video down below? Just because I was keeping my suggestions in a booklet and I somehow lost the booklet, so I keep going back through all of my videos trying to track down all of the suggestions, but that's really difficult and I keep thinking I'm missing some. So if you would like to see a specific video, please make sure to comment that down below. Anyways, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!